Hello, good morning, good evening, good night to Yavi Good Vibes, where we dive into recent topics and analyzing these topics, giving possible hints and trying to understand where the entire thing might go to with several options, and then also a conclusion about these topics. So today we dive into the evolving political face-off between Donald Trump and the incoming mayor of New York City, Zohran Mamdani. We start with what's happening now and then explore two possible futures and finally wrap up what this could all mean. Let's dive in. To start with and to understand the stage we are on, we begin with the recent mayoral election in New York City. On November the 4th, 2025, Zohran Mamdani won the race. According to Associated Press, like CBS News, etc., Mamdani defeated both Republican candidates Curtin Silva and independent former Governor Henry Cuomo. He secured roughly 50.4% of the vote and became the city's first Muslim mayor, its youngest in more than a century, and identifies as a democratic socialist. So the Times. Mamdani campaigned on an affordability and housing agenda, rent freezes on rent stabilized units. Also, one of his core things were higher taxes on wealthy New Yorkers, expanded public transit, among others, etc. Meanwhile, President Trump has waded in. According to a report from The Independent, he suggested that if a candidate like Mamdani were elected, the federal government has tremendous power over cities and implied the White House might intervene or cut support. Also, according to a report in People magazine, referencing a story by the New York Times, Trump had talked on the phone with business leaders and Republican congressmen about the New York City mayoral race, exploring which candidate could be best in order to challenge Mamdani. On the other hand, supporters of Mamdani and many progressive Democrats view this win as a signal of a shift in the party. For example, his election was framed by some analysts as a test case for whether progressive left-leaning platforms can succeed in major American cities, and so they did. From the Republican side, there is a concern, as noted in a live report from The Guardian. Trump called Mamdani 100% communist lunatic after his primary win, signaling harsh criticism and strong resistance. So, in summary, we have a newly elected mayor in New York City with a bold and progressive agenda, and president now influential GOP politics who views this development as a political threat, possible with federal implications. That sets the stage for the clash we will explore here today on Yavi Good Vibes. So what does this all mean? I just mentioned, and hey, our analysis, and I'm super interested in about what you guys think. We have here right now two possibilities, two so-called options, how we see it, and what might happen. Option one. The first scenario, we assume escalation of federal local conflict, with Mamdani pushing ahead aggressively while Trump or his aligned networks deploy pressure. Here's how it could play out. Mamdani starts to implement his agenda immediately, like rent freezes, increased taxes on millionaires, heavy investment in public services. etc. This creates a strong pushback from business interests and real estate stakeholders and also other investors in the New York City area. In response, the federal government or a Trump-influenced Congress begins withhold or threatening to withdraw federal funding for key New York City projects: infrastructure, housing, transit. This kind of leverage was hinted at by Trump remarks about tremendous power over the city. The city, his budget stress, new tax burdens, plus potential funding cuts create a fiscal squeeze. The major faces choice: scale back program promises or raise other taxes and cut services. Politically, this becomes a national flashpoint. Republicans use the conflict as evidence that progressive urban leadership is unsustainable. Democrats use the major struggle as a rallying cry for more federal aid and more progressive governance, as what they call progressive. The result: either Mamdani backs off parts of his program or he doubles down and becomes a national symbol of, as he would call it, progressive governance and his way of turning things around. Either way, the stake gets higher and the conflict could brought out. In the second scenario, we consider co-optation and moderation, a path of compromise rather than confrontation. Here's how it might unfold in this how we analyzed it, option 2. Mamdani realized that to succeed he needs cooperation with Albany, that's New York State government, and Washington. He adopts a slightly more moderate tone, scaling back the most aggressive tax increases and moderating his rhetoric towards business. At the same time, Trump and aligned Republicans decide that an all-out fight with New York City could backfire nationally. They therefore step back from the full-scale funding cuts, choosing instead to negotiate or to limit themselves to symbolic actions. The city and federal state governments reach a working arrangement. Some of Mamdani's agenda move ahead, like affordability programs or transit improvements, but slower than promised. Some conservative concerns are at the same time addressed, like public safety. We remember that the new mayor wanted to decrease the power of New York City Police Department, less police, more social workers, etc., etc. And also some other conservative concerns are addressed, like business climate and business investor friendliness. So politically, Mamdani positions himself as both progressive, as he would call it, and pragmatic, winning support beyond his initial base. Trump uses the outcome as both a cautionary tale, like look what happened, and a lesser threat. We worked this out, so we are giving hands. The result: New York becomes a case study in how progressive urban leadership can succeed with institutional cooperation, not just conflict. As the national headlines shifts from battle to transition. So what does this all mean? All right, what can we conclude? The face-off between Trump and Mamdani is more than a local politics story. It reflects a broader clash over what cities in America will look like, who controls them, and how much the federal government intervenes. If option 1 plays out, we get a high-stakes national showdowns with New York City as the battleground for, as Mamdani would call it, progressive versus conservative visions of governance. If option 2 plays out, we get a more incremental but still meaningful shift. A test of whether bold ideas can be implemented through cooperation rather than conflict. For your viewers, keep an eye on 3 things this year. So there we will see where we are facing to. Federal funding decisions for New York City. Yes, that's number one. Key legislative actions in the New York City budget under Mamdani, and how both sides frame the outcome politically. So remember, federal funding decisions for New York cities, we can see it there. Key legislative actions in the New York City budget under Mamdani, and how both sides frame those outcomes and how they use it politically. So, thank you for watching. Be good vibes. We keep up, and if you like this breakdown and potential options and our analysis, please subscribe and hit the bell for our next analysis. I see you next time. Your Yabi Good Vibes.